Morning. It is Friday morning. It is March the 28th. We are almost to April, y'all. And it's a beautiful forecast. How are you? I'm WESH 2 first warning meteorologist Eric Burris. This is Coffee Talk. We get together 7 days a week, chat about what's going on in the world of weather, hopefully get your day started off on the right note, a sunny page, at least get you updated on the weather. A live look outside on our Tower Cam network is looking great. Tourist district, top left, 64. Look at that. Downtown Orlando, a little bit of high, thin cloudiness. Daytona Beach, the world's most famous beach, and I get it. Looking good. 72 over at the Kennedy Space Center. It's a beautiful morning. It's going to be an absolutely beautiful day for us today. Temperatures are going to climb nicely. We are on our way up to about 80, 81 degrees, depending on where you are. Here's a look at our 12-hour forecast. 79, 1 p.m., 82 degrees, our high temperature on the day. We do have a storm system that's moving in this weekend, though, and that storm system bringing us much needed opportunity for rainfall. Just take a look on the different computer models, those darker greens indicating a half inch of rain possible. But of course, the big question, when does that rain hit my house? I gotcha. Don't you worry. Let's take a look at our Futurecast model. We'll go hour by hour. We can skip through today. Today is so dry, as a matter of fact, that we have fire concerns. But looking ahead to Saturday, adding a little bit of cloud cover, sprinkle perhaps. Otherwise, Saturday looks good. Saturday's the day you want to go out and play. Do the theme parks, do the beach, that sort of thing. Look at Sunday, 7:30, 8, 9 a.m. Couple showers, no big deal. Lots of clouds. But look at the afternoon. Let me back this up a little bit, okay? Lunchtime on Sunday, still good. So first half of the day on Sunday, we're fine. But 2, 3 p.m., Futurecast putting in some showers. That's when we're just going to at least need to be watching our WESH 2 mobile app for that live radar and, of course, tuning into the overall setup around us, yeah? 6 p.m., yellows and reds, those are thunderstorms, and then, of course, continuing 7, 8, 9 o'clock. And that's why when we look at Central Florida's certified most accurate 7-day forecast, we have rain chances, healthy rain chances in there, right? Today, gorgeous, sunshine. 84 tomorrow, a sprinkle or two. Sunday, we get into the rain, though. For now, 60, 70% coverage, depending on the model run, depending on the overall setup that ends up being. And then into next week, y'all, upper 80s, couple of lingering showers, maybe thunder showers. Yeah, we'll be watching an early summer's pattern, if you will. All right, but it is Friday. So that means that we've got some extra special stuff. And if he's ready to go, as long as he's ready to go, I am super, super, super excited to welcome the guest on this morning's Coffee Talk drive-through. My friends, this is Joe Coscia. This is a genuine news legend, and I'm not just saying it to fluff up your feathers, Joe. We're going to talk about your career and all that, but I want to just start off by asking you to share the story of how you and I got to meet each other. Let's start there.
You could tell that story. Good morning, everyone.
All right,
Good morning, Eric.
Joe is my first boss, my first news director for being on air, okay? And don't let that silver fox look fool you. The guy is he should be done with hair because of the kind of story that he has. So I was an intern here in Central Florida. I got a job here in Central Florida off air. And basically, there's a job that Joe had. This is back in 2005 for weekend weather at WPBF in West Palm, which is a sister station to WESH. And I start annoying the snot out of Joe. I get an interview, and for one reason or another, Joe hires me.
One reason or another.
I don't know. So yeah, go.
I've got the reason, and I thought about it.
Okay. I want to hear it then.
Uh, it's very simple, Eric, and you already displayed that. It's passion. It's your passion. It was your passion about the business. I'm getting a little bit of feedback. Is that me?
Okay. All right. Sorry about that.
Is that better?
Yeah.
No? Okay. It's passion. It's the passion that you have. It's the passion that I look for in our on-air talent, in our off-air talent, in just our team. But you came at the right time, and at WPBF, which is a Hearst-owned television station, it's a great organization, and I'm proud to have worked for them for a number of years and brought many people, including your boss, Stephanie,
Yep.
into the fold. And we have history, and the history at WPBF is weather first, and that's where you fit in. We believe that weather should be the top of every show, at the top of every broadcast. It's what led the way. That's what we did at 25.
Wow. I love it. So Joe gives me this opportunity, and you always know that first job is going to be some of the hardest to get because you don't have that body of work. Joe took the time not just to hire me, but I think it's so important. Joe, as a newsroom leader, also took the time to coach me. And at the time, I'm 21. I know I'm in over my head. But you continuously brought me into your office, and it's probably because I needed a lot of work. I think we can agree with that. But you took me in, and it was, the thing that you always said to me, and this is how you came up in conversation just yesterday, Joe, is I still say you're not talking down to people. You don't want to talk down to people. You just want to teach people so that you don't want to get too into the weeds without at least explaining it. And I think that's something you always talked about. Sam Champion, and how Sam just tells it how it is. Don't talk about precipitation. Tell me if it's going to rain.
You still are very verbose, Eric. um, it is, and it's the same with reporting, and the same advice. Not only weather talent, but on-air news anchor talent, reporting talent, is don't try to be a reporter. Don't try to be a weatherman. Just be yourself and tell the weather like it is.
Right.
The thing about, and the timing that you had at coming to WPBF in 2005, 2006, South Florida, we had just gone through a couple years of hurricanes. 2004, 2005,
Right.
we had 4 or 5 of the worst hurricanes in South Florida. And WPBF was a beleaguered number 3 in the market. We trailed way behind WPTV, the Scripps owned station, way behind what was then the Freedom owned station, WPEC. And we needed a way to get on the map. And I used weather. We used weather. And we said where weather comes first.
Right.
We started, and that's where your passion came in, because I wanted a weather geek. You were the weather geek. We already had the dean of weather in the market, Mike Lyons.
Yep.
We had some other great talent that stand next to you in those great weather first photographs on the hurricane survival guides that we did back in 2005, 2006, 2007, 2008. And we put WPBF on the map, and you were part of that team.
Thank you.
We took weather coverage seriously. We took weather seriously, but we also knew the business.
Right.
And the business was, if you can sell weather, you can sell your team.
Yeah.
Then we can monetize it. We brought in sponsors. So we were the first to put the word first in weather.
Mm-hmm.
Now everybody calls it first alert, first warning.
Right.
First,
Yeah.
First that. We were simply weather first.
Yeah.
Weather first. Weather at the top of every newscast, weather at the top of every block. And it was producers like Stephanie who had to make that work. Stephanie Linton, Emily Thompson, Kathy Shalcross.
Yeah.
My producers who produced my tri-female anchor team and my weather first forecasts and broadcast. We put WPBF on the map, and it worked.
It did. They're a strong station now in West Palm, and you are certainly a big part of that. I mean, it's kind of neat to get a chance to just have this conversation. Being, I'm 41 now. You hired me 19 years ago. I was
Okay.
21 when you hired me, and I'm still with the same company. And I remember at the time, Joe, my thing was, you asked me, okay, where do you want your next stepping stone to be? Where do you want to leave WPBF to go to? And I said, well, I want to go back to my old station in Orlando, which wasn't Wesh. And you said very clearly, well, you'll get to Orlando, but it's going to be for Wesh. And you know what? 21-year-old me said, okay, whatever he says. But here I am. I'm 41, almost 41. I turned 41 in a month. I could not be
You're
more
still 30 years
grateful.
younger than I am.
Huh?
You're still 30 years younger than I.
Yeah, well, if I can look and have the spunkiness at that age, Joe, then then I'm doing okay. But I am so grateful for you taking that chance, and I had no idea. I had no idea at the time what you were giving me, truthfully.
Well, it's thank you, Eric, and thank you for being one of the success stories that came out of WPBF, I still stay very close to the trades. I'm still here in West Palm Beach. I'm broadcasting from my history room.
Yeah.
It's I call it the Joseum. Not quite sure what I'm going to do with it, but it's got a lot of memorabilia behind me. It starts with my beginnings at WABC in the early 1970s when I walked into the WABC TV newsroom in New York City, the number one market and the number one station.
Yeah.
And I was only 18 years old.
Okay. Yeah. Well, so we have to get into that because I see over your shoulder Al Primo Eyewitness News, which in New York City, that's where that entire world started. So you gave me my leg up. Let's get into how you got started and became, and I'm just going to say this, and I've said it in the days and weeks since we've ever worked together. You are a flipping legend in television, and you've been a part of legendary newsrooms. What's your story?
Um, it's much like yours. I had a passion for television, and it was kind of logistics that really made my mark. But the very beginning was I was a broadcasting student. Broadcasting, what is that? But a broadcasting student. I was actually the first station manager at my high school, Severian High School in Brooklyn, New York, in Bay Ridge. Go Brooklyn! And we started in 1968. We started a television station. So I was the station's first station manager, and we were doing homeroom television shows back in the late 1960s.
That's wild.
I went on to Brooklyn College, City University of New York, and was in my first year. This is 1971. My hair was out this way, not this way. And I decided to do my term paper on Happy Talk News. And at that time, WABC was the emerging station in New York, rendering this Happy Talk format, which was really putting street reporters out in the news, in the newscast, and bringing those stories back home and being eyewitnesses to that story.
Right.
And that was Al Primo's idea. And much like you, I said to Al, I said, I want to do this. And I went in there. It took me weeks of phone calls trying to get that interview with Geraldo Rivera. There he is. There he is up on the wall, right up there. I don't know if you can see him, but this is a picture of there it is. That's a picture of me and Geraldo last year when we introduced the Al Primo documentary.
Yeah.
And there's an original poster that is signed by Geraldo back in 1972 or 3 when we did the Willowbrook expose. But it was the whole beginning of the kind of local news that took over the country, that took over the entire industry. Yeah. And we now see that format in many ways. It is very different now. A lot of people say, what happened? Is local news the same? It's not the same, but what remains the same, and I'll get back to the original story.
Yeah.
It's the people. It's the people. It's the people. Right. It's the people, both on air and off the air.
Right.
You want people in the newsroom that represent the people off the air,
right.
The people you are delivering the information to. And it goes back to what you said. when you're talking to people, talk to people,
Right.
talk to your friends. That's the key to it. So after weeks of trying to get this interview with the number one reporter in town, Geraldo Rivera, who is a young Puerto Rican lawyer for the Young Lords, who Al took on board, and he was doing some fun reporting.
Yeah.
And I decided, as an 18-year-old, I wanted to interview Geraldo.
Yeah.
Thanks to Sylvia Musto, who to this day is my friend. She got me in, and I was interviewed by Al Idelson, who was then the executive producer,
Mm-hmm.
who then allowed me to sit in the morning meeting, stay in the newsroom for the entire day. And by chance, Geraldo finally came back from a story, and I was introduced to him, and he said, "Come with me." And there I was sitting in his cubicle while he typed his script. The film was in the lab up the street on West 66th Street in what was the ABC headquarters until only last month.
Right.
They moved down to Hudson Yards. But 77 West 66th Street was my beginning.
Wow.
And I spent the day with Geraldo. I went down to the studio with him, and there's a picture on the wall back there of my very first time meeting Roger Grimsby and Bill Butel.
Those are the legends of New York news.
Sat in the postmortem with Al Primo and the people who made Eyewitness News.
Yeah.
And as I was leaving, Don Dunphy, the assistant news director, asked me if I had a good time and did I get everything I needed. And I said, I did. I loved it. He said, would you be interested in a summer replacement desk assistant job, which was a copy boy?
Mm-hmm.
I said, heck yeah. So 2 weeks later, I began my summer internship as a desk assistant.
Wow.
And that August, I said to Don, I'm going on a camping trip up to Niagara Falls.
Yeah.
I'm going to leave a week early. I have to go back to school.
Yeah.
And he said, oh, no. He said, we're promoting Ed Gallorenzo to a full-time writer. We'd like you to take his position as a full-time desk assistant.
Oh, wow.
I was ready to quit school and say, yes, I'm ready to go. Don said, no, you'll still be able to go to school. You're working overnights and weekends. And I did.
Yeah.
I did. I completed my undergraduate degree working full-time 6 days a week at Brooklyn College, and began my master's. And at 23, the then news director, Al, went on to become the head of the group and go on to the network and everything else. Ron Tendelia promoted me to the assignment desk. I was the youngest assignment editor at 23 in WABC TV's history. And I think pretty much I still have that record.
Love that.
So I made my bones on the assignment desk at WABC. And basically, when people say, what does that mean? Well, you're the city editor. You're Ed Asner. There's a picture of me and Ed Asner up along with Walter Cronkite. It's about, you're the casting director. You're the first person in the morning. You're getting the crews moving. You're getting the reporters moving.
Yeah.
But you also need to have a pulse on what's going on.
Yes.
And that's the key. And building the team, I learned from the best. It was the team behind you. Always hire people smarter than you. Always hire people who have passion and who are willing to work, who are willing to excel, who are willing to go above and beyond. And that's how I define excellence. I take that line from Pat Riley, but defining excellence is those who are willing to go above and beyond. You fit the bill.
Well, I will always try to live up to that. So all of the comments are everybody saying, boy, Joe's got some stories. Other people are talking about what a wonderful resume. The wildest thing, too, is the fact that he only talked about So after WABC, you made your rounds in New York City as well.
I did. In 1979, Steve Cohen came down from WCBS, the Tiffany network, CBS, was now oh my God, this eyewitness news thing is we have to do something. We have to compete. And Steve wrote in his book, which is in the showcase. It's called The News Life from Arkansas to Aruba. Steve tells the story of how he stole me from WABC. Basically, Primo and Tendelia had built a team. They had built a format, and they were number one for a reason.
Yeah.
And Cohen said, I need you to bring that magic to WCBS. So in 1979, I left WABC.
Why are you shrugging your shoulders?
For the first time, and went to WCBS. And then we started what's called the Channel 2 Newsbreakers. It's called, that's what we did. We break news.
Right. Well,
and then I brought along Warner Wolf, among others. And we did what we had to do at WCBS for a bunch of years. And
yeah.
We made some history there as well. We broadcast the very first televised New York City Marathon in 1980, long before ABC and ESPN ever covered those kinds of things. But we did it live.
Yeah.
There's a picture on the wall back there with the New York City ENG truck, the electronic news gathering mobile truck, which were called mini cams or live trucks.
Yeah.
But I'm standing next to Roseanne Scamadella, who is the New York City reporter, Roseanne Scamadella, who Gilda Radner depicted in her character, Rosanna Dana.
Yeah.
So Roseanne and I, who are still best of friends, is legendary as well and is part of my life and my history. But it's the stories that these influencers, and I call some of these people I call you a newsfluencer. It's what we did. We were breaking new ground using the technology.
Right.
And that's what it is today. And what you're doing here on Coffee Talk is reaching people and talking about people and telling stories.
Yeah.
And that's the key to the content in local news, telling stories. The problem with stations today is that we're very corporate centric. It's all about the monetization.
Right.
And we've lost track of people. We've lost track of the stories of people who we are hired and obligated to serve.
Yeah.
That's what it's about. I don't like being called fake news. But the reality is, and going back to what you said, being real, that's the real news. Telling people's real stories and transmitting that, whether it's on broadcast or streaming on internet, that's the key to the future of storytelling.
Right.
Content is still king. And then people like you that have a passion to deliver those stories. There you go. And you weren't the first to talk about Coffee Talk. This is called Breakfast with Your Neighbors. See that?
Yeah.
The,
oh, yeah.
Channel 6 logo on it. This is when I was news director at WRGB in Albany, New York, where I put a young 26-year-old gal named Rachel Ray on television. And we called it the 30-minute meal. Anyway, her picture's up there too. But we did a thing called Breakfast with Your Neighbors. And we sent out one of my original reporters, Margie O'Brien, who's still in Providence, Rhode Island. Every Wednesday morning, we would say, bring us the coffee, bring us your concerns and issues, and we'll bring the Dunkin' Donuts. In this particular case, we had McDonald's sponsoring.
Yep.
Our sponsor in Providence was Dunkin' Donuts.
Yeah.
And we would do our morning live shots from a diner, from someone's living room.
Oh, I love that.
We would have all the principals with the story. It could be a school board debate. It could be issues in the town. It could be about a traffic light. It could be about sanitation. It could be about anything that affected people's lives.
Right.
Come on the broadcast, sit around the table, have a cup of coffee, and talk about it.
Well, and
Talk.
you bring up such a great point, because to that, when you get to the real foundation of journalism or weather, right? It's about making the connection, and it's about solving people's issues. And I think that that's, to me, why this format is so wonderful to me, because it breaks that wall down, and it allows direct interaction. And on a day like today, on a quiet weather day, it's talking about the weather, and we can joke around and talk to you, Joe. But when there's real stuff happening, when people are terrified because there's a hurricane, and one weather person says, you're gonna die if you don't evacuate. It's like people have real worry, and it's like, all right, let's break that wall down and let's just talk. And I think that that's where journalism hopefully heads, is a way, and meteorology heads, is a way to break that wall down. You were doing it decades and decades ago, but I don't think that it, in its foundation, has changed.
Well, here's the thing: is that with the whole weather first philosophy and weather period and weather, severe weather coverage, now you call it impact weather.
Yeah.
Um, that's all names, but the bottom line is when you have a regular following on any given day, you are invited into people's homes, whether it's on the laptop or on your smart
Right.
device or on the TV.
Yeah.
The platform doesn't matter. It's what you have to say is what's relevant.
Yeah.
And when people put their trust in you, they come back. Because number one, here's what every single story, every single broadcast means, or podcast.
Right.
It is to educate, inform. Okay. So when you're doing your everyday weather forecast or news report,
Mm-hmm.
we're informing, we're educating our viewers,
Right.
our public. Number two, people don't want to be spoken to and given lessons every day. They want to be entertained.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that piece of entertainment
Yeah.
that goes in it. You're funny, you're lively, you're personable, you're not a static reporter standing there in front of the black hole. So number two, entertain.
Yeah.
But third, and most importantly, is to empower. When you inform people and educate them, when you entertain people and keep them happy,
Yeah.
okay, you empower them and they come back
Yeah.
because you've given them something. They haven't wasted their time. So when severe weather hits or when news breaks, they turn to you. That's how you form, or nowadays, it's how you gain subscribers or
Yeah.
followers. But we gained audience, we gained loyal audience, and that's where the ratings came in. Again, there's the business of monetization.
Right.
Everybody is, oh, I got 900 views on my last this
Right.
or that.
Yeah.
Well, monetization is important. That's how we make a living. That's what puts the lights on.
Right.
How we do things, I'm never one to say, don't look at a sponsor and say, go away. We could put sponsors on coffee mugs. We could put sponsors on T-shirts.
Yeah.
We could have commercial breaks. Edward R. Murrow sat on the news desk smoking a Marlboro cigarette. They had Texaco gasoline station signs on the set.
Yeah.
What we're doing these days is just we're dealing with the technology and how the message is delivered.
Right. Right.
The message doesn't change. The message doesn't change.
Can you all see why I loved having Joe as a mentor? I mean, it's so, just listening, it's wisdom oozing out of his mouth. Okay. All right. So we have to get to some of the comments because a lot of people have a lot to say and add to the conversation as well, you guys. So first thing is folks just talking about how what you put together up there, talking about sitting around and just discussing, that's news I would watch. A lot of people are saying that Coffee Talk is entertaining because we do come off the tracks every now and then, I'll just say. And I would add, Joe, a lot of people are complaining that we don't have Coffee Talk merchandise. So I probably do need to get on to Stephanie Linton about that.
Come on, get the merch, baby. The merch. Get the merch.
All right. Other folks with other questions. Sonia is talking about. I remember those days. There's even some folks, Joe. I have to tell you, it's kind of funny. There's even some folks that talk about they lived in Palm Beach County, and I'm going to air just like some random WPBF news video that I found on my computer. There's some people that
come first.
I'll turn the audio down. We don't need it, so yeah. But there's weather first. This was 21-year-old me. But there's people that talk about remembering watching me in West Palm and seeing me grow, and then having moved up to Orlando or about the time that I did or what have you. So it's kind of wild that there is some overlap of folks that watched child me, we'll say. Let's see here. These kiddos need to go to college. Get the merch. All right. So, Joe, what are you up to in these? We don't need to see that anymore. What are you up to in these days post WPBF? What are you doing today?
Like I do every day, figuring out what to make for dinner.
Yeah.
I truly have been blessed and honored to have worked with some of the best in the business, to be part of those who really shaped what local news was over the past several decades. And I know that may sound old. I really loved working in the local newsrooms. And that's the one thing that when I left the network, I went from WABC to WCBS to 30 Rock at WNBC, where I have a number of other great stories to tell.
Yeah.
30 Rock is just a legendary place to work. So yeah, I worked at all three of the big networks in New York, and then I went corporate in 1986 or so.
Mm-hmm.
Bryce Rathbone and the boys at Capital Cities came over, took over ABC, and I went to go work for Murphy, Burke, and Sias, and that's where I also worked with Bob Iger. Bob
That's
Iger
wild.
and I worked on the same projects together, and I was director of station relations for the ABC television network. So I handled 30 ABC stations in the Northeast. And Iger was one of my best friends. And it's interesting that the day Bob Iger was named president of ABC Entertainment, I was supposed to have lunch with him in the ABC cafeteria.
What?
And yeah, and his secretary called and said, Joe, Bob's going to have to cancel lunch with you today. You'll find out why in about an hour when the press release
Oh
comes
my gosh.
And Bob was named president of the entertainment division. I got some good Bob Iger stories. Yeah, Bob, obviously, as you know, went on to become king of Disney and came back a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Great guy, great man to work for. And I have to say, again, blessed to have worked with some of the pioneers in this business.
Okay, so everybody is going nuts. Just commenting, and I've got to be honest, like that, I had no idea that. So my jaw is kind of on the ground. Okay, so a couple of questions. So Terry asks, well, first off, everybody says you're going to have to come back and talk more because there's clearly stories that you're just not going to have time to get into, like when I lived with Joe. But we're not even going to get into that right now. We just don't have time. But
well, you lived in the WPBF corporate apartment.
The corporate apartment, right? But so everybody's kind of the theme is the same, which is just you've worked with some pioneers. You have such a fascinating background. Out of all the pioneers, out of all the folks that you worked with, who's your favorite? Who's the one that you sit back and say, "My gosh, what a great thing."
There are so many people who not only influenced me, but I have to say, and I say this with a little bit of a tear in my eye, but obviously Al Primo was my godfather. Not only is known as the godfather of Eyewitness News or Happy Talk News, but I was 18 years old when I walked into that WABC newsroom in 1971, and I was awestruck. But at the same time, that's that's what propelled me. And I remember the day Al brought me in there and he said, "Boy, I'm going to make you a star."
Ha.
Um, God love you, Al Primo.
Wow.
That's what this behind me is. That's the Al Primo documentary that we released just over a year ago,
Yep.
done by Brian Calfano in the University of Cincinnati. And I was out there with Geraldo to introduce that documentary to the world.
Mm-hmm.
Geraldo's another one. We have some great stories. Worked very closely with him as a desk assistant on the story that created Geraldo, that put him in the business. The scandal at Willowbrook, and it changed the way retardation was dealt with in the United States. And Roger Grimsby, the anchor of all anchors. I mean, Roger was like a father to me, and I had some great stories. When Roger, on my 21st birthday, we were at the Pelican Club up on Broadway, on the Upper West Side, and Roger, whose picture is up there as well, and drinking, and it's signed, "These hands spilled more than you'll ever drink."
Oh my gosh!
So as I'm downing some vodka, and I remember Jilly Rizzo's in there, some guy that hung out with a guy named Frank Sinatra.
Oh wow!
And Roger kind of leans over and says, "Are you okay?" And I said, "I'm not doing so well." He said, "Oh, I'll take care of you." Puts his arm around me, walks me through the bar, out onto Broadway, takes one arm, puts it up on a New York City parking meter, puts the other arm up on this arm, puts my head down on the parking meter and said, "Come back in, you'll feel better." Okay. So that was my 21st birthday with Roger Grimsby. I did name my black lab after Roger. My lab was named Grimsby.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. Some strange stories.
So, Cindy.
So those are my mentors: Roger, Al Primo, Ron Tendelia, Steve Cohen.
These are, these are giants in our
Those
field.
those are real life influencers.
Yeah,
I call them newsfluencers.
Yes. Cindy, I think, sums up all. I mean, there are hundreds of comments, Joe, but I think Cindy's sums it up. Cindy says, "Forget work. I just want to sit and listen to Joe's stories all day," and I agree.
There's 100 stories on these walls.
Yeah. So other folks, ask your questions so that way, we can get some of those answered today. Joe, I can tell you though already, we're going to have you back to hear some more of these stories as well. Like, for example, we're going to, not today, I'm going to have you back another time, but we'll have to hear about when you hired a young Meredith McDonough, for example. Not today. Don't do it. Don't do it. There's a fun story there.
I'll tell that story if Meredith is on with us.
That's it. That's what I want to wait for. She's anchoring right now. Otherwise, I would have surprised you with her on here. But
well, we have the Meredith McDonough story is probably one of my favorite stories.
So you're going to have to. This is a deep tease, folks. You're going to have to stay tuned for that. But when I think about the people that I work with, Joe hired Mare, and I've worked with Meredith almost 20 years. Joe hired Stephanie. You hired Stephanie, right?
Stephanie actually was there. She had just graduated from UF.
Yeah.
She was a fledgling producer. And it was Stephanie, Emily, Kathy, who is now my daughter-in-law.
Which is so funny. Love
that's
her.
Another story. But we had to come up with a number of ways to put us on the map.
Yeah.
And that was one of the stories is that what we did in local news and we did at WPBF was to innovate and how do we get that message? How do we get our message to people? We did it and we got on the map I created a tri-female anchor team.
Yeah.
When Hearst said, "Hey, you need to do something, but we're not giving you a budget," they gave all the money to you guys up there at Wesh. Okay.
I was not at Wesh. Just know that. I was with
Well,
you.
well,
And you
Stephanie
cheap son of a
was
gun, you didn't pay me either.
Stephanie was one of the best producers in the shop. She's still one of the best leaders. You have a great boss.
Yeah.
But it was Stephanie and Emily and Kathy who had to put my idea of having
Yeah.
a tri-female anchor team on the anchor desk deliver the news.
Well, and
Uh,
to that
I
point,
mean, they
Joe.
could tell you the stories about the color chart, how the three gals up on the anchor desk, Stephanie, Kristen, and Lisa,
Yeah.
so that they wouldn't be wearing the same colors. So they
Yeah.
literally, we had a color chart for the week. We had, you know how anchors do the teases during the night or
Yeah.
lead the show. We had a rotation that Stephanie and Emily and Kathy all developed
Yeah.
about how the anchors would read the story. And then I throw the weather first format into the mix, because we had to find a way to reach people that nobody else did. And
Right.
in South Florida, what is the most important thing, as it is everywhere? What is the most common denominator? And that's why you do coffee talk at 8 o'clock every
Right.
morning. It's appointment viewing.
Yep.
We want the weather quick. Give us the weather. Tell me like it is, and
Yeah.
get out the door.
Right.
We did the weather first forecast, and as consultant Joe Ravito, another great news director,
Love Joe.
um, Joe Ravito said, "I want to use that weather first format everywhere in the country."
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it didn't live that long. I kind of left the station, and weather first kind of went by the wayside, and so did the tri-female anchor team. But it put us on the map, and to this day, I think WPBF is one of the sharpest programs, one of the sharpest teams.
Yeah.
Not only in the Hearst group, but in the ABC group and across the country in any station group. So,
Well, and you're talking about the folks that were working with you. Like, all right, so Stephanie Linton, now my news director, okay, and is running I mean, look, I'm not just saying this because she's my boss. She's running a heck of a news product. I mean, we have gotten so much better under her leadership. And again, I'm not just saying. I would say if we were just fine, I would say, you know, she's our boss. So she has strengthened the Wesh 2 brand. Emily Thompson, who has now moved into your old office. She is now leading WPBF, was a strong leader as an executive producer, now is a wonderful leader as the news director. Kathy Shallcross Kasha up at WCBS, kind of walking in your footsteps, so to speak, a little bit up there.
she's her own person. She's doing great. She's married to my son Joe, who's a New York City fireman. He's a lieutenant up in the Bronx. Good stories there too.
Well, we're going to definitely have to revisit, but we're going to have to slowly start to put a button on this. So one question we always ask folks, which is, what's your morning beverage? And you're retired, so if it's a shot, you tell me it's a shot. Is it coffee?
Coffee in the morning.
How do you take it?
One sugar, one little splash of milk.
Okay.
It's the afternoon espresso. That is my main event.
Gotcha. All right. So one other thing, and this is going to warm my heart more than it probably should, which is we also always ask our guest to do the 7-day forecast. It's dumb, I know. Can you even see it?
You're testing my age.
No. We're using a different. I'm using a different method, so I don't know if it's backward or if you can even see the 7-day there.
Well, it's gonna, the sun's gonna come up and go down every day.
That's perfect. I like it. Any other questions, folks? Anything else at all for Joe Kasha? We will have him back. I can promise you that. I if nothing else, I am so grateful to have had the chance to talk to you, Joe. This is kind of just one of those random things. We were talking about you yesterday and how I am always going to be grateful. And sidebar, you know, my going away party from WPBF. Joe, we asked Joe to go. He was not my boss. He had no obligation. Joe came to my going away party at WPBF. I mean, what kind of a guy? And he never said my name right. You always called me Burris, which I love to this day. Love it. He's one of those people for me. And I'm not just saying this because you're sitting here. This is the way I truly feel. You are one of those people that when I look at my career, it would not be anywhere near where it is without you. You gave me that start, and that is not that is not a freebie. That is something you took a chance. You put. I remember when you were talking to the at the time general manager. I remember thinking to myself, you had to go talk to Vicky, and you disappeared for like a half an hour. You just left this 21-year-old kid in your office for half an hour, and I'm like, this guy's selling me to the general manager, saying we should hire this 21-year-old. I'll never forget that feeling.
Um, the rest is history.
The rest is history. Very good.
You know what? Somebody gave me a chance. Thank you, Al Primo. I'm happy, Eric, that everything has gone so well for you. You look great. You have a great family. I enjoy your Facebook stuff.
Thank you.
I'll tune in more to Coffee Talk.
You should. And when hurricanes come, you can even chime in and ask a question. I'll give you.
We got some good hurricane stories, and we've got at least 1, 2, 3. We got 3 of the Weather First hurricane guides up on the wall.
If I have them somewhere. Can you show everybody the hurricane? I don't.
Oh, well, we did it.
Oh, yeah, you posted it on the Facebook, didn't you?
I did. There's one here. I don't know if you can.
Yeah, let me see if I can find. Yeah, I've got them somewhere. Okay, hold on. Save image as. I'm going to do this just super like sloppily. Desktop save. I'm going to do this super sloppy. Forgive me.
Do you want me to send it to you?
I can just grab. I already grabbed it. Just let me find desktop. Okay. All right. Image. All right. Give me a second. We're just doing this. All right. This is the hurricane guide that Joe's talking about here. There you go. That's one of the early ones.
And there's the young Eric Burris.
Bury. He still doesn't know how to say my name.
Right in there. That's a crew. Bryce Daniels.
Yep.
And then you're standing next. Is that Felicia next to you?
Felicia and Bryce. Yeah. Yep.
Well, Felicia's now the main anchor, but she came up the ranks. She was a reporter. And I said, well, you got to do some weather. We got her meteorology degree, and she became the morning weather person, then the morning anchor. And now she's the main anchor at WPBF.
Yeah.
Then there's Mike Lyons, Kate Wenzel, who's at WPTV, still in the market.
Yep.
Corey Sabin with hair.
Rosier. Angela Rosier still at WPBF.
Yep. Then the bottom row, our beloved Kristen Hoke, who succumbed to a battle with breast cancer. Mm-hmm. That's another story.
Yep. Sweetest, kindest, who did everything great in the world right up to the very last moments. Who I there's the cancer hospital at Jupiter Medical Center carries her name. Just a giant in the community, and as Billy Joel says, right, the good die young, and it's a terrible, terrible thing.
Yeah, and to wrap it up, there is John Shaman, who's an anchor at WPTV, the NBC station here. Tiffany Kenny, who's right next to Felicia on the desk here in WPBF, still there, and Lisa Hayward, who's now down in Miami producing, I think, for WFOR. I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, but I don't know.
That's part of the crew. The weather is always first in my book.
Yep.
And look, if there's anything to teach, it's again, be yourself and create content that people care about.
Yeah.
Let people tell their stories.
Yes.
That's what Al Primo's message was that we're obligated. We have the responsibility, the privilege to tell people's story.
Yeah.
So people ask me, what did I do? I was a content creator.
Before it was called that, but it was no different.
I was an assignment editor.
I love it. Joe, thank you for your time. Thank you, buddy. Thank you so much. We're going to have you back for more of these stories. I have never seen anybody trigger the comment section with, we need more of Joe's stories. So bravo and hats off to you, my friend.
We have plenty of stories. There's plenty. what's in that case, we could spend quite a bit of time with.
I was at Joe's house one time, and when I saw Emmys with Peter Jennings' name on it, I think it spoke to me.
Yeah, there's a few of them in the box. Whoops, sorry about
In
that.
the box.
Yeah, didn't mean to get that on there. I don't know how that happened.
Oh, well. Well, listen, Joe, thank you
All
very
right.
much, buddy.
Well,
What?
well, well. There's a bunch of them in there.
Yeah, that's all.
You know.
Jeez Louise. Just.
All right. We'll see y'all later.
All right. Thank you, Joey. We'll see you, buddy. Joe Kasha, everybody. You know, one of those people that you really, I like like the Hamilton song where it's like, oh, I just feel like I could grab a beer with him. Like Joe's that guy that you could just sit and talk to and lose complete track of time because he has a way to reach through and just grab you and just make you want to hear what he has to say. And that has nothing to do with news. That's just the personality he is. He was and still is exactly what I needed in that moment of my career, and I still a lot of what I am. I will liken my professional mentality to two people, Bob Jordan and Joe Kasha. And you see why Joe Kasha is Joe Kasha, right? Jeez Louise. Nobody else on the planet. Nobody else on the planet is like him. And these comments are so great. I feel for the person that follows Joe on the Coffee Talk drive-through. um, that was incredible. The fastest hour I've ever lived through. Laura says I could hear him in his stories all day. How wild. Yeah, my favorite Coffee Talk drive-through to date. So there you go. Joe, we're going to have him back on. All right, people. It's 8:52. I've got to do the noon newscast, so I'll see you there. In the meantime, enjoy today. We're into the lower 80s. Be the sunshine in someone else's day.